Hey there, grateful gang. Lauren here, the Gratitude Addict. Thank you for bearing with me. I was just telling my wonderful guest who's going to be joining us in a few minutes, David Fryburg. I literally was just telling him what a hot mess I am when it comes to the tech aspect of the show. But this one was not my fault. All of a sudden, StreamYard was disconnecting from all of my platforms. So hopefully you are watching live. I see some of you are watching. So thank you for being here. This is Gratefully Living the Chronic Life. I come to you each Thursday at this time, normally bringing you an expert guest featuring a topic that helps us to live a grateful life of joy and purpose, and doing it positively and using gratitude-based tools and things that help us to walk forward through this life of struggle. Many of us live, like myself, I live with chronic pain and illness. I run a group on Facebook. If you're watching, you may be watching from in there. It's called Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain. You do not need to have physical pain in order to join us. You simply need to live some kind of struggle in your life. So I think that pretty much encompasses everybody. And if you'd like to find out more about the group or about me, you can find me on gratitudeaddict.com. So thank you for being here. I have an amazing guest tonight. Our topic is on kindness. His name's Dr. David Fryburg, and he has an organization called Envision Kindness. And you will be so moved and inspired by how this medical doctor, has married kindness and the healthcare industry and reducing stress. It's really fascinating. I first met with him back in December. So it's a real privilege to have him here tonight. So I'm going to bring him on in a few minutes, but let me first tell you who next week, who is going to be our guest. We have James Cruz is coming back. He's, for those of you that have been watching a while, you know James. He is a poet who wrote How to Love the World, Poems of Gratitude and Hope. He was on last summer, and he has a brand new book out called The Path to Kindness, Poems of Connection and Joy. And I would like to say that I am organized enough to have sort of known that David Fryburg was going to be here tonight talking about kindness, and then James was going to be on talking about his poetry compilation on kindness. I wasn't that organized. It's just a very nice coincidence. But James is wonderful. So he will be with us next Thursday at 8 o'clock. I think I believe I mentioned this 2 weeks ago, and last week I aired a best of episode, but the week prior to that was Sandy Scarlatta, host of the Happiness Solved podcast. So thank you, Sandy, for being on with us. And thanks to all of you who watch live each week. It's a real privilege to have you with us. Speaking of which, if you are new to us, we welcome comments and questions to the broadcast. Just like this, I can put you right on the screen. Hi, Linda Edwards. Thank you for being here. So David and I will break on occasion to take questions and comments. I was going to give away some prizes tonight, but now that I had to disconnect and reconnect, I'm not sure that it's going to work. We can try. I'm going to give away a copy of my book, The 52-Week Intention Journal, and or new sticky notes with Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain on them, which I don't think any of you have because they're kind of new. If you want to try putting in #gratitude into the banner, we'll try to make it work. And if not, I'll just do a random drawing in the group tomorrow. #gratitude anytime during the broadcast, and you can be entered to win, but it may not work. We shall see. Final thing, I started a new show, a vlog on YouTube. In addition to this show, which is Gratefully Living the Chronic Life, I heard from many of you that wanted to hear how I gratefully live my chronic life. So that's exactly the name of the vlog, which I started 2 weeks ago, somewhere around there. So I'm featuring short videos of how I gratefully live my chronic life. In the last episode, I don't know if you can see, but there's sparklies in my hair. I got something called fairy hair. And without getting into what it is, you can see the sparkles perhaps. Go to my YouTube channel at Gratitude Addict, and you can find out about fairy hair. And I have a new post, I think, going up tomorrow, which is my top 10 favorite books on living with chronic pain and illness. So make sure you subscribe to my channel at Gratitude Addict. Without further ado, because I know we have a lot to touch on, and the subject is absolutely wonderful, as is my guest. Welcome, David Fryburg.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here. So David has an organization called Envision Kindness, and I did post a link to this in the group just a little while ago, but it's fascinating. David, maybe you can start from your background and then morph into how you got into all of this.
Sure. Well, thank you again for having me. You are a very special person, Lauren.
Thank you. Thank you. Same back. Right to you.
And so for folks watching, I'm an endocrinologist by training, a physician scientist, and I've been a professor at a medical school and an executive at Pfizer. And then I became a consultant. And while a consultant, I was reading the news a lot. This is many years ago, got stressed, got saddened, and I came to realize it was how much I was reading the news. And it's about a decade ago. And so I leaned back and I thought, wow, this is bad. And so I went to the literature like a good scientist would and said, okay, teach me about this. And it turned out that not only would reading about, let's say, a war in Ukraine make people sad about the folks in Ukraine, but it would also make them sad about their own lives. And that spillover, which psychologists I came to learn call mood congruence, I thought that really deprives people of a higher quality. And what could I do about it? And so I leaned back and thought, what if we had images of kindness and compassion and we shared them with people? And that's how it started, actually, very simply. And what I'm going to share with you all is a much deeper scientific as well as humanistic story that I hope will enlighten and help in whatever challenges you're dealing with.
You know, it's funny, David, and I'm sure we talked about this when we first met in December, but you starting what you do and me starting what I do is very similar. You know, I was recognizing that other Facebook groups that live with chronic pain and illness, I was getting very depressed in them because I'm an empath. So I was not only experiencing my own pain, but taking on the pain of everybody else. And it was a lot of, you know, those groups are very important. Please don't get me wrong. But, you know, it was a lot of complaining all the time. And so it was just chipping away at my soul slowly, which is why I started Attitude of Gratitude with Chronic Pain. We're a no complaining group unless you come to one of our live chats. But it was for that same reason, you know, kind of like what that's doing to my mood and your stress levels, like you said, right?
Sure. I mean, it's a prime motivator for each of us in their own ways of how do you make it better?
Right.
And the willingness to, you know, get up and do it. And I give you a lot of kudos for all that you've created.
Well, thank you. Wait till you show everybody what you've created. It's pretty special.
Whenever you're ready, I'm good to go.
Yeah, we're ready. Hey, gang, if you, as we're talking today, if you have anything you'd like to share with us about kindness, how has kindness profoundly impacted your life, please feel free to write it in the comments. David's got some really amazing things to share with us. But please feel free to write that in the comments and we will get to it as we can. So yeah, knock yourself out, David, whenever you're ready.
Okay. Oh, this wants an uploaded file. Okay. Well, let's see what happens.
Is there something that says share
sorry,
screen?
it's a little bit different than many other sharing platforms.
That's okay.
Sorry, folks.
No, that's okay. I don't know what it looks like on your end. Is there something that says share screen?
Yeah, no, I'm there. It's asking me to go get the original file.
Oh.
So I'm off getting the original file. There it is.
See the difference
Oh, it's
between
only
you.
allowing a file smaller than 50 megabytes. Okay.
Oh,
So how are we going to do this? I'm going
um,
to take the videos out of the file, and I'll start with that. And then maybe Lauren, you and I'll figure out a way to simplify it.
sure, whatever you need.
If I send you a link, will you be able to put it up?
Yeah, if it's a link I can open, I can share my screen. Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to reshare this because I'll start with just slides, and then I'll go from there to get us going.
Hi, Mary. Glad you're here.
Oh, wow.
Hi, Jill. Glad you're here.
Well, it's
We're in the
still
H.
it's kind of strange because I don't think the file is all that big. 1 second.
Sure, no problem. Gang, while we're waiting, if you want to share anything about kindness, we talk about kindness a lot in AOG. In fact, I was telling David before the episode, I shared this on my public Gratitude Addict Facebook page just an hour ago. Just saw this article from Time Magazine about loneliness being a public health emergency. Oop, I meant to share it. I'm sharing it on my end, but I'm not showing you guys anything. It's articles from last week, and it's talking about 1 in 3 people experiencing loneliness and having it be an epidemic, which ties in so well to what David's going to be sharing with us about kindness and connection.
So I'm putting in some video links into the chat.
Okay.
Don't open them yet.
Okay.
And it's uploading the file. Again, sorry, folks. That should be ready. So now let's, I don't know why it won't let me share here. Oh, I got it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Oh, I see something. Yep.
Okay. So can you folks see that?
Yes.
All right. So thanks again for having me. And all of the images that you're going to see here, or most of them tonight, are from photographers from around the world, and I'll explain that. But what I'm also going to do is tell you a bit about, to start with some science. And what I want to be sure to say to you is that gratitude for me, kindness, gratitude, forgiveness, altruism, compassion, volunteerism, empathy, they're really, and I'm sure you already all have thought about this, but just to be sure we're in the same space, or at least you know what I'm thinking, is they're very related. This is all about feeling connected to somebody else and then appreciation of that connection, right?
Right.
And once we do that, everything changes. It just changes markedly. And because we live in such a hyper stressed, hyper individualistic society, there are many forces that we're exposed to that work against it. So if you get bored, you got to leave. Here are just some things to think about as you go on your way. Gratitude.
We're not going to get bored, David.
Well, just leave it open as a possibility. I could put some of the best to sleep. So gratitude, right, is a positive quantity. We call it an emotion, and it's linked to kindness, right? Because usually, what is gratitude? It's appreciation for a gift that you may have received, or someone you love or care about or received, or someone else. And that gift could be, of course, a beautiful day. It could be a nice dinner. It could be a call from somebody. Experience kindness has been shown to increase gratitude, right? It should be a very easy statement to make. But then we know that kindness affects pain threshold. And since, the group is also focused on pain, I'm specifically including that. And there are many studies to talk about that. And largely because it also decreases the effect of stress.
Right.
And we'll talk more about that. Seeing kindness. So beyond being an actor, either a giver or a receiver, seeing it triggers the same neurophysiology, neuropsychology as performing it.
And this is when I first met you. This was so fascinating to me, and it was something I had never heard discussed until I met you, was the seeing kindness. Instead of experiencing it, seeing it had those benefits as well.
Absolutely. And that's where I stumbled into this, honestly, as I explained. I just thought I was going to rebalance, help rebalance what people see. What I came to learn is that there's so much more, and we'll talk a little bit about that. So here's the 30,000-foot view. Kindness in and of itself creates connection and community. It strengthens positive interpersonal relationships. And obviously what I mean by connection is this is not social media based connection that can amplify or help with that, but this is really when you know people, when you interact with them. In turn, it's been shown many times over that connection, and your next week's speaker is already mentioning it, right? And I'm sure it's come up before.
Yeah.
That buffers stress. It promotes resilience. So buffering stress means you might have something go wrong, but it affects you less. And then in turn, right, if we buffer stress, the byproduct, the outcome is health and happiness. And that simply seeing it triggers this cascade, which then, I don't know if you can see my cursor. Do you see the cursor moving or
I
no?
don't think so. No.
Okay. So imagine following the arrow back around, because when people are happier, of course, they become more kinder.
Right.
Okay, more kind. So sorry, a few minutes about stress itself. United States or US citizens were tied before the pandemic for fourth place as the most stressed citizenry in the world. The countries we were tied with: Armenia, Iran, and Sri Lanka.
I'm actually surprised that Japan isn't up there.
It isn't as high. The US is the most developed nation in terms of being, at least in this survey,
Not
as being
surprising.
stressed.
Yeah.
Both developing and developed countries have it. And there are a variety of reasons, and I'll talk a bit more. They're listed on the slide. And since people often like quantifying a problem, it's been said that workplace stress unto itself, that from a job, right, causes about 120,000 deaths a year and costs somewhere in the order, this is US only, 200 to 300 billion dollars. So if you look at it and you ask, okay, well, this is complicated. I mean, stress is so manifold and multivariate, right? There's always a bunch of different stressors, right? There's financial, health, family, work, media, loneliness that you were talking about before, or so loneliness, bullying, discrimination, ostracism, these are disconnecting stressors, right? And here's our prototypic person who's just experiencing them. Now, depending on the person's genetics, where and how they live, right? Are they exposed to certain allergens, for example, that can cause asthma? Do they have the genetics that lead them to depression, or perhaps genetics that might predispose them to hypertension? And then their resources, access to healthcare, healthier food, that kind of stuff. And you put all this together, And then you find out, well, okay, they manifest in terms of diseases. So in mental health, there's sleep disorders and anxiety and depression. And physical health, there's cardiovascular disease and asthma, as well as diabetes, obesity, etc. And then there are the choices that people make often to quench the pain of existence with alcohol and other drugs, with what they do with how diet's managed, with cigarettes.
Yeah.
All of
Next
these
Monday, this upcoming Monday will be 9 years of sobriety for me. So that definitely manifested that way for me a long time ago. So I really had to pivot with a lot of these tools that you're talking about.
congratulations.
Thank you.
That's great.
Thank you.
And pain, of course, is inside of here. And I'm sorry you can't see the cursor as I move along. So on the left is the other piece that's very important here is cognitive function. What cognitive function is how clearly do we think? How do we take in new information? How do we make decisions appropriately? How do we solve problems? How creative are we? And finally, how helpful are we? And it turns out that a little bit of stress takes a hammer, if you will, to cognitive function. You can see people's ability to perform and make decisions decline markedly, even from mild stressors. And then if you put all this together, and this is important for you all to understand, it becomes a vicious cycle, right?
For sure.
The worse it gets, the worse it gets. So It comes back around because now you have these diseases and they're added stressors that also can impact finances and your health, etc. And it all adds up.
Sure.
So really, and medicine works down on the bottom of the slide, not really on the top of the slide. I'm going to skip this for a time. So kindness is a natural antidote to stress and a path to meaning for, and this is for staff and patients, but it's really for everybody. And promoting a culture of kindness and caring can promote widespread flourishing. And I put in an asterisk, especially for the group, to acknowledge this, gratitude is right in there. This all is tied together.
Yeah, it's very related, isn't it?
Yeah, it's really all about the same thing.
Right.
Sometimes we call it underneath different names or subset it, but it's really about the same. So you might say, hey, this is all nice, and I know there are a lot of believers in gratitude who are on this call, but tell me about, well, why would it be? Is it a nice thing because, my mother said to do it, or my pastor or religious leader said this is important? And I'm going to try to reframe this for you. And I want you're now all evolutionary psychologists, and you're trying to understand, why would nature want us to help each other? So the first thing that we anticipate, the first thing that we accept, is that the way of nature is to promote life, right? Darwin talked about it even at the beginning. It was about something he called reproductive fitness, the ability to continue having generations of offspring. Well, it turns out, right, self-interest, hedonism, is usually good for the survival of one, but it's not good for the survival of many. So other interest, the willingness to help others, at least in your species and community, is critical to promoting long-term survival.
I never thought about it that way. That is so interesting.
So Darwin, actually, his first book was about natural selection. That was called The Origin of the Species, if you recall. He wrote a second book, which was called The Descent of Man, because he was wrestling with this idea: why were all of these organisms, ants, bats, rats, dolphins, elephants, non-human primates, why were they all sacrificing for each other? And he came to this conclusion and made this statement that a species in which the members will sacrifice, take care of each other, is the one that will best flourish. So for us, right, you've heard, I'm sure, we're described as social animals. And most of these that I've just named are social animals. We're driven, right, to be connected and be involved with each other. It's also why social isolation, loneliness in the elderly, or isolation in the elderly, or isolation in prison is so painful. Because nature is saying, go, here it is, you need to connect with other people, you need to be around. So there's a natural, innate need to belong and feel supported.
Right.
And kindness also satisfies it. And for humans, I can't talk about non-human primates, but for humans, it adds one other dimension, right? The idea that we matter,
Right.
that we have purpose, we have meaning, therefore derived. And if you remember the writings of Viktor Frankl and Abraham Maslow in the 20th century and many others, the search and the quest for meaning is definitely a human goal.
Right.
So social connection does all of this, and it's been shown time and again to buffer stress, as I talked about before. So what's going on in the brain? And I want you to think about, if you think about it as this reward or pleasure pain principle, and being connected to others, right? When you get a hug, like imagine this is a nurse's aide with a patient. Imagine feeling that hug. How do you feel when you're receiving it, particularly from someone who's meaningful to you? A guy named Alan Lux coined the term helper's high many years ago. It's that what positive psychologists call elevation. It's a eudaimonic mouthful of word happiness in which we just feel very grounded. It's a very centered kind of happiness, not like you won the lottery, but like you belong. And if you think about the reciprocal, as I just mentioned, right, loneliness is painful, etc. Bullying is, the recipient of bullying is painful. All of these things, and as evolutionary psychologists that you are now, we will explain this because nature is saying, I want you to feel good. Go and be with somebody else. Take care of somebody else. Remember the old aphorism, the giver gains more or benefits more than the receiver.
Yes.
So there are a lot of neurologic systems that are built in to let us do that. There are systems, of course, we can read and mimic facial expression and body language and touch, right? There's the ability of empathy, or what's also called theory of mind. It's a fancy term for saying, I think I understand the way you're thinking and how you will feel. And then there's compassion and altruism, which you all know a lot about. And oh, wait, emotions are contagious.
Right.
So if I walk into a room, I bet all of you have gone into a room and there's somebody there who's joyous and they're laughing and your mood picks up. You feel it, right? Or you walk into a room and somebody is scowling or upset and you feel that too. That is emotion spreading, and you are absorbing it and processing it, on a lot of it subconsciously.
Yeah, I
There's a
tell my
nerve.
members all the time, if you want to live a positive life, try to hang around positive people and don't spend the majority of your time around negative people. It would be really difficult to get out of that.
Absolutely. And so but first recognizing it is a step to then
Right.
applying it. And there are other things, and there are hormones, and you may have heard of oxytocin, and you may have heard of endorphins. And this response that I talked about, the helper's high, it's partially blocked by using something that reverses the effects of an opiate called naltrexone. That you may have heard about, like EMTs use it when someone's overdosed on an opiate.
Right.
So the real question is then how it comes to, well, if all of this is true, how do we tap into this and help uplift people and promote kindness and connection on a daily basis? And because most people are busy and they don't have time, how do we just do this really quickly? So as we were talking about at the beginning, images do this. And I'm showing you a lot of images on purpose so you can start to feel it, because feeling it is honestly much more important than the details of the science. The details of the science will say, yes, what you're feeling is real, but what you're experiencing is more important. So in this case, and by the way, that's a Sri Lankan great-grandmother doing a traditional infant massage. What we have done is, in this quest of using imagery, we crowdsource our images from around the world. And then we incorporate them into video. And because we didn't want to go through social media, but really bring it to where people are stressed, we stream it right in. And so we started in healthcare, but we've also just piloted in a school, and it goes into waiting rooms, work rooms, inpatient rooms. Imagine sitting in the emergency room, etc. And I'll have to put up the second link, and so you can show folks what this looks like.
What a fabulous idea. So you can be in a waiting room and then see images just like what you're showing us in a waiting room, where perhaps you're nervous about a doctor's appointment or, an upcoming surgery or something like that. And people can see these beautiful images, right?
Absolutely. And we do it in a short form. I'm going to look up the video link now. Maybe it's a good time to play it. Just give me 1 second, Lauren,
Sure.
and I'll put it in.
Sure.
That way people can see what I'm talking.
Yeah, that would be great. This is beautiful.
So please, if you can show the second video. I don't think I can. And it may end up bouncing me off, but I could always get back on.
All right, I think I got it.
Okay.
Skies are clear, stars are bright. No one's around, it's only you and me. In your eyes, I see the light. No one's around, it's only you and me. It's only you and me.
Great, thank you. And
Beautiful.
I'm glad you liked it.
Yeah,
See
that
if
was
I can do.
absolutely beautiful. I mean, I don't know how you can not get in a good mood after you see that.
Well, thank you. I am looking at. I found it. I didn't notice before a different way to share.
Oh, great.
Um, so let's see. It's here, and I'll go back into a presentation mode.
Okay.
So we make a lot of different content. The central part is image based, and then there are also concepts. There's pay it forward, forgiveness, gratitude, quotes, humor, and we also do mindfulness. This is a frame from a mindfulness piece, because of course I'm guessing that you've had a speaker about one or more on mindfulness and meditation.
In 2 weeks, we have another one coming back, but that's one of our primary tools also is mindfulness.
And it's a great way because once the chatter drops down, we can then start to see how we're all connected. And the anxiety, right, by removing the stress, which also changes my pain threshold,
Sure.
right? Pain is worse when you're stressed. The amount of an anesthetic or analgesic that's needed is greater when we're stressed. Those things shift. And mindfulness is another great tool. And I've given a talk on other stress reduction entities, but today we're going to focus really on kindness. And so in healthcare, what we're trying to do is positively shift the emotional and spiritual environment and enhance the experience for everyone, because the docs, the nurses, the staff, they're under stress, and the patients are coming in with stress, and everybody's got it. And what we need to be able to do is elevate everyone so that the quality of their own experiences are greater, and therefore the productivity of that encounter is really improved.
Makes sense.
So,
Linda,
look,
I'm glad that you enjoyed this. She says so touching.
Oh, great. And I'm sorry, I can't see you now. I'm in full view mode.
Oh, no, that's okay. I'll read it to you. So, and Heidi here says, I saw positive signs on several walls of a hospital. I even saw a sign on a cart that a hospital employee was pushing that said, positivity is contagious. That's awesome.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
It is contagious. It's incredibly contagious.
It is.
So, are you still seeing my slides?
Not on the screen. I see you've got them up below. I can put. All right, now it's back up.
I don't know if I did something wrong.
No, I think I may have taken it down to show the video.
Okay.
It's back up now, though.
Okay, so let's go back to this method. I apologize, folks. I just am not as familiar with this, so I'm sorry for
they're
bumbling.
used to me every week, so this is nothing they haven't seen before. You're doing great. This is wonderful stuff. Thank you, David.
So my pleasure. So what we went ahead and did is study it, and then there's a friend of mine who's a pediatric dentist who offered his office up. This was pre-pandemic. So a lot of things have obviously changed with the pandemic in terms of access. And so it was parents and staff who participated. The content, the kindness media is shown on the waiting room television. People are coming and going. They're getting called in for appointments. The kids are running around. The parents are filling out forms. It's all done very deliberately like this. And on one day, they might have had children's commercial television, which is what's standard in the graph. And on the other day, the kindness media, like the piece you just saw. And so in the graph, what it's showing you in the study, which was done with 3 professors of media psychology, is that people were rapidly uplifted. They were inspired or moved or touched, just like I'm guessing that many of you would, have felt. They also were happier. They were much calmer. And there was an increase in gratitude. So, and these are all what are called statistically significant, meaning that they are measurable and we can say that they are looking very different.
Enough of a difference where you can actually report it as making a difference. It makes so much sense. I can't believe nobody's thought of this before. I can't tell you how many surgeries or procedures I've gone into. We're sitting there in the waiting room waiting to go in, and the news is on in the waiting room constantly. It just this makes so much sense. If I were to watch something like you just provided us with, that would change my attitude completely. It was beautiful.
Thank you. It's a great insight. And in fact, in so many emergency rooms, the news is playing. And one of the messages, I don't think I kept it in this slide deck, is take out all the negative. Do not show that. And even things that are home and garden, or what media psychologists would call neutral media, those can also be boring. So in this case, the intent is to engage the viewer with something that is, if you will, soothing to the soul. So what we did is also put together psychologists often collapse emotional groups and in terms of their analyses. And these people were pretty happy. The maximum scale is 5. So they were pretty positive even at baseline, but they still overall showed an increase. And because related to that, they were fairly happy, their negative emotions, sadness, anger, irritation, were fairly low. But they still dropped after the kindness media, largely driven because the staff had some levels of irritation that decreased a lot. And then at the end of after they completed the survey, they all knew that they were going to get a $5 gift card. And we offered them, go claim your card if you'd like, or you can donate it to a needy family. And these are the rates of donations, the number of cards that were donated. And to give everyone perspective, this is typical in an experiment, a study like this, where they're asking a test of generosity where 40 to 60% of people usually donate. And here this is 85% donated.
That's amazing.
And it is, and yet honestly, we published this last year, but what gave me a lot more confidence in it is this is in academic studies, so not in a real world setting, but in an academic psychology laboratory. This has been shown time and again, these whole effects, which is very gratifying, because what I'm more interested in doing is applying its use and studying how it can benefit people. And so it was really encouraging. And so in healthcare, but also schools, you probably read about students who are very stressed. Teachers are incredibly stressed, and the staff. There have been fights in schools more than ever before. There was an article in the New York Times about this, where they interviewed schools counselors as what's going on.
Yeah, teen mental health is just atrocious right now. It is a state of emergency. It's really just so sad.
So the intent here is to be able to allow the person, people to help each other. So because this is contagious and as people see kindness, then they go off and then their actions will affect somebody else. Remember, all of this is contagious. And so that person then away from the media then interacts with another person. And other people, right? Everybody's always watching. We know that. And that's, by the way, not a conspiracy or a paranoid thing. We just know that consciously and subconsciously, we're all watching each other. It's just natural. So we have started in a school because I had a principal of a school in Pennsylvania reached out and to talk about using the media in her school. And before we ever got started with the study and really working in the school, the principal decided to just show that same video that you saw about hugging to a group of kindergartners. And she relayed that the kids got really quiet, watched the video, and then this 5-year-old, and then a 5-year-old boy who's got a part of a self-portrait here, went off and drew a picture of him hugging his mother.
Aww.
And I was thrilled for them, for the moment and whatever sharing that they would do. But also because it gave a window into how even young children would potentially respond to the media. So, and this isn't about our media. I don't want you to hear that. This is about if we look at media as part of our diet, and by the way, diet from the Greek actually means way of life. I learned this not too long ago. Even though I'm an endocrinologist and I used to talk to people about diet all the time, it really just means way of life. If we talk about the visual diet and what people are exposed to, there's a lot of good stuff that can be done.
Sure.
It also has relevance to racial tolerance, and I don't have a lot of time to talk about that, but there are academic studies that demonstrate that very well.
Yeah,
Cross-cultural and racial inclusion. I'm sorry?
No, I apologize. I didn't mean to talk over you. I was just saying that would be very special to improve those relationships for sure. Improve our tolerance of each other.
It's part of social healing. It's really, I think, what I've come to realize we're talking about. There are a lot of advantages. It works really rapidly. It's passive. We don't do anything with criticism, which is, as you've, I'm sure, all seen, the preferred way of trying to change someone's behavior publicly. And it's because it's media, you can put it almost anywhere.
Right.
And we published on it. And I don't know if I can't start this. It's a video about doing how kindness spreads. I explained it. The visual is very helpful. But
it's not on your YouTube channel, is it?
No.
Okay.
The visual. So.
It's not on your YouTube channel, is it?
No. Oh, we're getting
we're getting some kind of weird
echoing. Can you go to this video, to the first one, please, Lauren?
Yeah.
And that's on gratitude, and then I'll stop. And if there are any questions, and I can stay beyond 9 or the hour.
I'm that couldn't have been the whole thing, was it?
No, I don't believe so.
Let's see if I can.
But I can try the link again. Let me just, if you want to try it, I'm going to look back to the link.
Yeah, it's only 10 seconds long.
Okay. So it was an upload problem.
Okay.
Anyway, I apologize. It's really a animation of Seligman's 3Gs. So to teach people, for anyone who's listening who's not familiar with it, Martin Seligman is perhaps one of the early leaders, if not the leader, in positive psychology. And years ago described an exercise which he called the 3Gs, as thinking of three things that you're grateful for. And doing that, he suggests in the evening before you go to bed, and had some data to show that it was about as effective on mood as an antidepressant. So it's a very encouraging practice. And so along with images of kindness and caring, and we've done pieces, as I mentioned, on gratitude, on forgiveness, but for my own ineptitude for doing this. So
No, no, it's just tech issues. It's not you at all. Wonderful. It's absolutely fascinating what you're doing. So you are no longer a practicing endocrinologist. You do this, and this is your mission to get this across the world in waiting rooms and schools and things like that, right?
yeah, I stopped my regular scientific work about 3 years ago, when I realized that this was more of a public health effort. And also, this was why I went to medical school.
Yeah.
And to be able to help people on a broad scale and do it simply, and they become their own change agents, it's far too appealing.
Right. Right. And you referenced Viktor Frankl with A Man's Search for Meaning, and he's one of my favorites. I have his book right up there. He talks about one of the only things that we have control over is our response to things in any given situation, right? So that is part of my message. What I try to share with people that are either in the group or watch me on YouTube is that we can't necessarily change the specifics of our situation, but we can change how we respond to it. And so by consuming things like gratitude or kindness or these beautiful images and videos that you're showing, we can eventually, like gratitude, studies show that you can rewire your brain a little bit at a time, right? And so that's what you're trying to accomplish with these beautiful images, is trying to help us, just trying to soften the blow, and we consume so much negativity all the time.
And I think it steers us in the wrong direction. So these are ways of nudging ourselves, and most of it is honestly subconscious. It's not like there's a cognitive event. So you looked at that, you saw the video, and it sounded like you had a response to it. And that response wasn't really because you're thinking, oh, wow, that's great, and I'll go out and be kind. It's tapping into this innate wiring. And I analogize it for people you see a picture of something, of food or some drink, and you become hungry or thirsty. It's the same kind of thing where we are suggested. Psychologists will call a lot of this priming, and we respond to it, and we don't even really think about it. It's very cool to be able to tap into that in hopefully a beneficial way.
It's wonderful, wonderful work that you're doing. Heidi says, does reading about kindness have the same effect? I am part of Facebook pages where people post about acts of kindness.
Absolutely.
Good question.
There are studies, for example, on meditation like reading, you're thinking. So that's more of a cognitive aspect, right? But and you're conscious of it. But in the studies of loving kindness meditation that often, have a Buddhist origin, but it isn't Buddhism per se. It's just using a principle. People who had depression or sadness felt much better. So there's a specific adaptation to that. So the short answer is yes. And the other extension to that is you don't have to necessarily go and look for it. You can be meditating and offering loving kindness to others.
Mm. We had the guest I had on 2 weeks ago. Our topic was on forgiveness. And, we talked about the act of forgiving really and looking at it more as not taking that other person off the hook, but really doing it for ourselves in order to have peace in our hearts and forgiving and releasing, that those resentments and things that we can get, they can be really toxic.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I often say that, I think gratitude is obviously, I'm a gratitude addict, but I think that gratitude is really one side of the coin. I think it's wonderful, but unless we pair it with connection, pairing gratitude and connection together, I always say it's the secret sauce to a life of joy and finding meaning in life, because we can be grateful, but when we're sharing it with others and connecting, like you're saying, through kindness and connection, it snowballs. It's a non-vicious cycle, right? It's a beautiful cycle where we feel more giving, we feel, grateful, we feel kind, we pay it forward. It's really just a beautiful cycle.
And then that person pays it forward, right? And then they feel good. And that's the ripple.
Right.
That's the outward expansion. But because life, right, has recurrent challenges, even from ourselves, right? We have ego and why am I here? And I can't believe they didn't invite me to, this event. There are things that each of us feel, and those are small, compared to I lost my job or I'm ill. All of these things wrap around. So it's really like unwinding or untying a knot. You cannot pull the knot, can't pull harder to expect it to open up.
Such a good analogy. I'm writing that one down. Not. I love that. That is so true. The more we resist, the more pain we have.
And the tighter it gets, exactly.
The tighter it gets. That's brilliant. And when we're in isolation and feeling lonely, we tell ourselves a narrative in our head of things that aren't necessarily true. We think, nobody understands me, nobody understands my pain, they didn't invite me, they don't like me. It's when we're connecting with others, and especially like-minded other people, where all of a sudden I feel like they get shifted into perspective. Would you say that's accurate?
Yes.
Yeah.
But, and obviously we have to adapt and be also forgiving of ourselves. So it's not just forgiving others, right? We have to accept the faults in our own lives.
Right.
Because I make mistakes, and a piece that we made is it's called Perfectly Imperfect. And it goes to talk about making mistakes and letting go, but also understanding them so I don't keep making them.
Right. Right. The definition of insanity, right? Doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results.
Thank you, Dr. Einstein.
Yeah. EnvisionKindness.org is Dr. Fryburg's organization. And you do this with your son, right? We didn't mention your son.
My son started with me, yes.
Okay.
He was no longer, but yes, we started it together.
So people can donate to EnvisionKindness.org and help you with your cause. This is a beautiful cause that you're doing. I would love to be able to get the word out more. And is there a spot on your website where people can donate?
Of course, and those would always be appreciated, and I would, I'd be grateful. But also, if you're in your physician's office or you see media that's playing, you don't even have to tell them. We license media that our business model that we're starting is a subscription based, but at least suggest to them to play something, maybe a nature film or something that's a bit more relaxing.
Such a good idea. That is something we can all do. Absolutely. I never really thought about it before, but it's it's playing in my mind, these things that are on in the waiting rooms in doctors' offices. It's really kind of a bit crazy, and especially in the ER. Nobody goes to the ER because things are going that well in their lives. It's usually something. Either you're waiting for somebody or you're going through something, or you've been waiting for 5 hours to get seen. It's never a pleasant experience.
It's a high stress setting
It is for
for
sure.
everyone, for the staff, for the patients, for the families. Everybody's got a lot of stress.
Right. So we can do this, gang. And next time you are in a doctor's office and it's, if there's something, or dentist, and if there's something on TV that is not feel good, you can certainly go and ask for them to change the channel. Absolutely. We can all do that. And if you'd like to find out more about Dr. David Fryburg and his organization's envisionkindness.org, and he does have a Facebook page as well, Envision Kindness. David,
And the media, I'm sorry, Lauren.
No,
The
please.
media is called Inspire. You'll see that on the website. There are a lot of things that we can do, and actually they're small, but they can change our lives.
They can. I honor you in the work that you're doing. I think it's a beautiful thing, and I really commend you for taking this road and just giving it your all. It's really beautiful.
Thank you. It's been an honor and a privilege. I love the venture.
Thank you. Thank you for being here with us after all these months. You were supposed to be on a couple months ago, and then I screwed up over something. So thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for being here. And gang, thank you for bearing with my tech issues at the beginning of the episode, but we do appreciate you being here live. And I will see you next Thursday. And for those of you that entered to win something, I wanted to give David extra time. So I will do a drawing in the group tomorrow with everybody that commented #gratitude. I will do a drawing. So I will see you next Thursday. David, thank you again for being here.
Thank you. Wishing you and everyone else a great night.
Thank you. You too. Peace and
Bye.
love, gang. Get your gratitude on. Yeah, there's my closing.